Spoiler alert. The following will contain spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine.
Who is the anchor being of Earth 616?
I will not tell you that, but I love that you asked.
Well, if Kevin Feige won't tell you, then I will. What's up, everybody? It's me, E-Man, and I've got a fun theory to share with you all today. After watching Deadpool and Wolverine, I think I've stumbled upon a theory that might actually answer not only a previously unsolved mystery from Endgame and the Loki series, but also a question from Deadpool and Wolverine. I believe that I do know the identity of the actual anchor being of the 616 MCU universe. And let me stop you right there. It is not Tony Stark. I know, blow your mind, right? Hey, Tony, thank you for your service, though. If you've seen Deadpool and Wolverine, then you saw the scene between Mr. Paradox and Deadpool where he introduced the new concept of an anchor being. In the film, Paradox explains that if an anchor being dies in a given universe, then the entire universe will also die out. We found out that it was Logan who happened to be the anchor being in Deadpool's universe. So this death kicked off the whole adventure for Deadpool and Wolverine. So with that information, I believe we have some basic criteria to figure out who the anchor being might be for the 616 timeline. Number one, the character has to still be alive. Otherwise, the 616 universe would be in danger. And from what we can tell, there's nothing to indicate to us that the 616 sacred timeline is actually in danger. If it was, we'd probably notice the TVA in panic mode trying to protect the sacred timeline. Number two, this individual would have to be very important, right? Like they have to be just as important as Logan. So keep those 2 points in mind and we'll come back to that, okay? It is going to be important. But in order to really figure out who the anchor being could be, I thought it would be best to go all the way back where all this multiverse stuff started to find some clues. Now, we all know that in Avengers Endgame, the Avengers managed to travel back in time, grab the Infinity Stones, bring everyone back after Thanos snapped away half of the universe's population. While they were on their time travel adventures, however, something went wrong and they ended up creating a variant version of the 2012 Loki. Now, this variant Loki ends up going to the TVA, who are kind of like the time travel police, and he had to stand trial. One of the most curious things about this trial was that Loki was told that what the Avengers did was actually supposed to happen. Now, I don't know about you, but I remember when we were watching the first season of Loki and that very first episode, talking about the Avengers were supposed to do that, I found that a little confusing and it just didn't really make sense because we were shown that the TVA had pretty much one job, and that was to prevent new branches in the timeline from happening and to prune all these different variants. Now, later in the series, it was revealed that this was all due to the plans of one man who was in charge of the TVA, He Who Remains, or Kang, right? So He Who Remains ultimately had the goal of wanting to be replaced. He was tired. He needed someone to step in for him. So it might have been safe to assume that he allowed the Avengers to time travel because it was by those means by which the variant Loki was created, who, as we saw at the end of Loki season 2, eventually did become the successor for He Who Remains. However, that wasn't his only goal. He Who Remained also had another goal, which was to preserve the sacred timeline, aka the 616 universe. So, with this new revelation of an anchor being, I believe that He Who Remains also allowed the Avengers to time travel because they had to protect the 616 anchor being. Because if they didn't, the sacred timeline would come to an end. So remember those two criteria we just talked about earlier? Let's explore the first one about a character that had to be alive or else it would threaten the whole universe. If it's true that He Who Remains really wanted to protect the anchor being by allowing the Avengers to time travel, then I believe that cuts off our list in half, meaning it would have to be a character that died in Avengers Infinity War. That also means that we can cross off a number of characters off our list. All the original Avengers that did not die in Avengers Infinity War, get them off the list. Cap, gone. Hulk, gone. Tony Stark, again, thanks for your service, gone. Black Widow and Gamora, well, they're still dead, right?
Yeah, double homicide.
Now, there is one candidate who would be pretty interesting, and Fantastic Four director Matt Shakman weighed in on this with his guess.
Universe dies out. Who do you think is the anchor being of 616?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'd have to say for 616, I'd have to say the Scarlet Witch. My girl Wanda Maximoff.
Now, Wanda makes a lot of sense, right? The Scarlet Witch, whether it's the comics or even in the MCU, it's pretty safe to say that she is a Nexus being, and a Nexus being would be somebody who has the ability to affect the multiverse in whatever way. And let's see, she did die in Infinity War, and she also came back in Endgame, but she also died later on in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. So I don't believe that she could actually be the anchor being for the 616. And this is where we have to look at the second criteria that I mentioned, which is you have to be a very important character. It has to be someone that is just as important as Logan was to his universe. And that's where it hit me. I believe the 616 anchor being is the being who died in Infinity War, came back in Endgame, and I think is pretty obvious is a really important character, and it is none other than Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Yes, I believe Tom Holland's Spider-Man is the 616 anchor being. And hold on, wait a minute. I know that people are going to be like, where's your support? Where's your evidence? I don't believe you. And let me just be honest with you. Okay, the evidence for this is not very strong. We don't have a lot of information, so I'm going to give you as much information as I can, but I also want to be very clear and put that possibility out there that Marvel can marvel, and Marvel might do some nonsense, pull something out their sleeve and be like, oh, it was actually Ralph Boner, or it was Madison who was always the anchor being. Listen, any of that nonsense is possible. But let me give you a couple reasons why I believe Spider-Man is more than likely the 616 anchor being. When you take a look back at the role Logan played in the Deadpool universe, it really was both a significant factor, both in the story and in real life. On one hand, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine was basically the linchpin for the Fox X-Men universe. Logan had consistently been pushed into a more significant role as the franchise grew. The character also had the most solo stories. In the real world, Hugh Jackman was basically a moneymaker to get butts in seats for that franchise. So when you combine Hugh Jackman's great acting and the popularity of Wolverine, you ended up with one of the best films in the X-Men universe, being Logan. So it made sense to make him also the anchor being. Now, let's take that same logic and apply it to Spider-Man, and I believe he fits the same bill. While there definitely was a pretty emotional ending with the death of Logan, I think Spider-Man might have struck a similar chord for people back in Avengers Infinity War. A while back during an interview, Kevin Feige also said something pretty interesting about Spider-Man. He said Spider-Man is a powerful icon and hero whose story crosses all ages and audiences around the globe. He also happens to be the only hero with the superpower to cross cinematic universes. So at the time of the quote, I think it was pretty obvious that Kevin Feige was referring to the fact that Tom Holland's Spider-Man is the only character who exists in two different universes at the same time, meaning that the Sony Marvel universe and the 616 MCU. Well, I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty significant to me for a character. And if we're being honest, okay, and we look at the performance of the Sony Marvel movies when Spider-Man is in them and when Spider-Man is not, I think it's very clear to see that Spider-Man is the linchpin to the Sony Marvel universe. But what about the Marvel 616 Sacred Timeline? Given the fact that the 616 kicked off with the Avengers led by Cap and Tony Stark. And now that both characters have moved on, the logical decision would be to have Spider-Man come in and be the new face of the MCU. Currently, I would say that he has a really strong and solid trilogy within the MCU, and he's one of the few characters that Marvel wants to make even more solo movies for. So Spider-Man has always been one of Marvel's most popular characters, even probably more so than Wolverine himself. Look, even in the comics, Spider-Man was one of the few characters that the one above all bothers to even speak to. For those of you that don't know, the one above all is basically God in Marvel. So you guys let me know. What do you think about this theory? Could Spider-Man actually be the 616 anchor being? I think he fits the criteria. Similar to Logan and his universe, to me, it kind of makes sense that He Who Remains would allow the Avengers to time travel just to protect the sacred timeline as much as he's always wanted to do. But you guys let me know, what do you think about this theory? Who do you think the anchor being could be? Whatever you think, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you're new here and you like what you see, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell so you don't miss out the next time I drop a video. I've got more videos and reviews to do for you all, and until next time, I'll see you all later.